Oh, it's such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Shop Blinds.com right now and get up to 45% off select styles, plus a professional measure. Rules and restrictions may apply.
When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the vehicle owner's manual for important feature limitations and information.
¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
Kann du Norsk?
If you've heard that sound from Babbel before, I bet you do. Babbel is the science-backed language learning app that actually works. With quick 10-minute lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts, Babbel gets you on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. With over 16 million subscriptions sold and a 20-day money-back guarantee, just start speaking another language with Babbel. Right now, up to 55% off your Babbel subscription at babbel.com/Spotify podcast. Spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify podcast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Pointless Exercise podcast. It's time to talk about media and sports and all kinds of other stuff with Jon Greenberg, senior columnist of The Athletic. John, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I talked to my bosses at Marquee. They said I'm allowed to come on this show.
It's good. I'm glad you got permission. They did tell me they would instant message me though if I need to have technical difficulties at any point. So now you've been on that show. I love the set. It's extreme. I don't know how they spared no expense. You know, they have the glowing neon Cubs set, and then is that like it looks like they turned a garbage can upside down and then threw some papers on it.
See, the papers on the desk things is maybe a little much. They should have went for the old Wendy's tables. Remember the old Wendy's tables that had the newspaper like design on them? Remember those? Mm-hmm. That's what they probably should do. They're trying to do this. Obviously, they're trying to do the sports reporter's old set with the light, hanging over it. Here's the thing. I actually like the table setup.
Okay.
Better than the chairs that you had at Cap Show, because we all look like slovenly, like we're out of shape messes. It looked terrible because we're all in like cheap suits, and we're sitting in these chairs, and it's just like I would rather have a table around me to talk. I feel more comfortable.
Well, I agree with that. We talked about that with Chuggo and the fact they need a table.
Right.
You don't need to look at everybody's crotch the entire time.
This is our interior. You and I, when people come to this podcast with me and I talk about interior set design.
Yes. I have a problem though with the round table that you then it's just like in like a sitcom where they go to a restaurant, everybody strategically sits so you don't see the back of anybody. It just looks very odd.
Yeah. I guess right now the set design's not their biggest issue.
No, it's probably not. So, well, when you have rabble rousers on the show like David Haw and Peggy Kaczynski, you get what you ask for. The crazy thing was, at least the way Paul Sullivan summarized it, the criticism didn't sound all that much.
Yeah, I'm surprised that was the thing that someone pushed back on. And I really don't think it's a it was like an overarching like edict not to criticize the Cubs at all. Because the show I did, I mean, I don't remember what I said, but I do remember we weren't like, man, this rebuild's awesome.
Yeah.
Like the waves of talent coming in are just so impressive. Like we criticize them. So that I kind of do agree with McCarthy saying like it was basically someone being a little overzealous. I don't think it was a junior producer. I think it might have been someone kind of higher up.
Yeah.
That just made a quick trigger decision that really backfired.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's one thing if they cut it out. It's another thing to pretend that you had a technical difficulty, and then when you go to redo the segment, be like, you can just leave out the part about Jed not being as transparent as Theo. The other thing is, I mean, you know Jed. I only observe him from afar. I can't imagine that the Jed would care about that criticism.
No, I mean, although I will say Jed hasn't exactly helped himself with like pushing back when we call it a rebuild, like in questions. Like, dude, what do you?
Yeah, it's a retooling.
Like, it's just semantics. I get his point, and his point is that they've already built up an infrastructure and whatever. But like, it's not like the scouting. It's not like he's inherited this minor league system that's so great to run. I think it's probably just a little sensitivity of him. The fact that he's around, he was part of the reason why like they have to do a rebuild. So, I don't like when I was on the show, there was no, hey, you can't say this, you can't say that. McCarthy did make a joke to us when I got there about something we couldn't say, but it was something so outlandish. I don't want to repeat it because it was like in private, but like it was something so outlandish. Obviously, it wasn't something we were going to say. So like that was his only thing. But I mean, I guess, we have to think like we are going on the Cubs network. There's some stuff you can't say like, Todd Ricketts should go to hell. But like, Pete, we were joking, kind of doing something on the Pete Ricketts stuff because that was like the day that Pete Ricketts, like abortion should be outlawed for like in all that. We were joking about talking about that on the show, which would have been funny. But like, they were fine about everything. And if you're going to do the show, you got to be fine about everything. Like you can't do it half-ass.
I mean, obviously they're going to try to cover other sports, but it's still the Cub network. They're going to want you to talk about the Cubs. And if things aren't going well, you can't talk about how great everything is. They have to be willing to do
nothing's
that.
Great. Yeah, nothing's great. I mean, you made a really good point in your column, which I just subscribed to.
Yes,
as we talked about. And then I was looking at my bank account. I'm like, wait, what the hell is this? Who charged me this much money
for that crap?
Pointless exercise.
What the hell?
But no, you made a good point.
Boat.
You made a good point, though, that like what this really does is make you, think again about some of the other coverage on there, like what they're told they're allowed to do. I got to be honest. I don't know if I've ever watched the postgame show in its entirety, so I don't know. I'm going to do it tonight before I write about it to see like what they talk about.
You'll be the first. Nielsen will send you some kind of prize if you make it the full hour. But
they do like a full hour, don't they?
Yeah, they do an hour. They do an hour pregame and an hour postgame. I mean, Cole Wright should get some kind of medal for getting through all that crap, especially with the usually the dynamic personalities that they pair him with. Like, all right, Cole, an hour with you and Ryan Sweeney talking about the Cubs' 11-2 loss. Go. No wonder he's got terrible nicknames for everybody. It just chews up some time, and that's what he needs.
We both agreed the fact that like Cole Wright is like when he came from the NFL Network. He should have a national job, like doing national highlights. National interviews. He's a charismatic guy. He's a high energy. Like this just isn't the right. I don't think it's really the right fit for him. I'm sure he probably knows that as well.
Yeah. You
need a Cap. You need a shameless. Cap's not a shameless homer. Actually, I apologize for saying because Cap's a homer, but he's high energy and he's willing to criticize.
Yeah.
He's just nuts. You need someone who's crazy.
Well, he hangs out on one end or the other. He's either killing everybody or everybody's great. Depending on, there's no middle ground with Cap. He goes from this is the best team in baseball. I can't imagine they could lose 12 games this year to everybody should be fired. Everybody's a moron. Let's all go be White Sox fans. It's like no, Dave, calm down.
How about Cap's new thing? I heard him on the radio today saying that fans should never say a professional athlete sucks because they've got here. I'm like, Cap, your whole career is saying guys suck. Like, what are you talking about? But you do need a Cap. You need that local Like, on the White Sox post-game show, Garfine's doing a really good job actually directing traffic on that show, but Ozzy's like your crazy guy, right? Yeah. And then Garfine is fun because he does get really upset when the White Sox are bad, and then Ozzy gets to make fun of him, and it's a good thing. I mean, that's like what's the most popular Bears post-game show ever is Doug and OB on the score, right? Two guys just yelling,
screaming incoherently at each other, and people eating it
right,
up.
So.
Well, I asked Cap how close he got to working at Marquee, and he said not close at all.
No, it sounded like they made him some kind of offer, and NBC made him a better offer to stay. And it's better for his. He said it. It's better for his life. He's getting older, and he doesn't want to work every night.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Couldn't he do the post game from the cryo tank though? They just let him I got to get my cryo time in. That's fine. You want to do an hour?
Marquee needs Cap, and I'm sure they don't. I'm sure the people in charge think, whatever, he's just some Chicago guy, and they can, they have this national vision for everything, and that network needs a Cap in some sense.
The network needs a new everything. They need to whoever unplugged it, which should have done it for you. If you unplug it for a minute, right, and then plug it back in, everything reboots. That's what they should have done, and just start over with all of it. They need, I think we talked about it last time, right? I mean, they've got to have some kind of analyst with an actual personality. Post-game analysts. Their game broadcasts, when they leave them alone, are fine with Boog and JD. But good. I mean, I don't want to hear Ryan Sweeney or Sean Marshall or then, Cliff Floyd or Carlos Pena parachute in for 3 days and then they're gone again, and they don't know how to use Doug Glanville at all.
I think they like Mabin and Floyd, but I don't think those guys want to be full time here.
Well, Cliff's
because they're both doing national stuff.
Yeah, Cliff's got at least 2 other jobs, and Mabin's doing Yankee games. So
right. I don't think
they can't get him full time.
Right, and I think they're pretty high on them. Dempster's been gone for a while, right? He just came back again.
Yeah, it was kind of nice. He hadn't been around at all. All of a sudden he was back doing a little post-game stuff, and then all of a sudden the Cubs got to Cincinnati for the preview of the Field of Dreams game coming up later this summer that Fox must be super excited about. He's in Cincinnati doing just as the only analyst doing the Cub games. And it's we went from 0 to 1,000 with Dempster. Do we really need him all the time?
Oh man,
he's at his least destructive as a game analyst. He's not really bad at it. He's never going to be my cup of tea. I'll never forgive him for crippling 2 Cubs playoff seasons. Screwing up the Met game at the end of the season in 2004, and then having Joe Torre's strategy of just telling the Dodgers, take until he throws a strike, which was actually that was the Dodgers' entire elaborate strategy, and it worked. He walked 7 guys. It's great.
Ugh. I like Dempster personally, and he could be really good. I think if he just if he really wanted to get better at it, and if someone in charge would tell him when to lose the shtick. If he went to the ESPN broadcasting boot camp where they kind of will tell you how to ask questions. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. Of course, imagine if Cap ever went to the ESPN question asking summit where the question asking guru tells you how to ask questions. It would be his head would explode.
Yeah. But when do I yell shot or no shot? You don't. What? You guys don't know anything. With Dempster, I think you can tell by the blazer he chose that day whether you're in for it or not. If that red and blue checkered blazer is out, it's just turn the TV off because it's about to get bad. And the shtick, he's basically going to have Carrot Top's box, and he's going to be digging into it the entire broadcast. And it's just don't just go away.
I'm such a big Deshays fan, personally and professionally. Yeah, I just think he's great. He's a perfect TV broadcaster. He's funny. He's dry. He knows how to get the technical stuff out of it, but he's funny. He has an actual personality.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan.
And that's why when they tried to force Dempster in as the third man in the booth, it doesn't work at all because Dempster is a poor man's Jim Deshays. He's not going to tell you anything about pitching that Jim already can't. He tries to be funny where Jim doesn't have to try to be funny. He's just funny. It's like Bugatti has the guy sitting on his right. He doesn't need a lesser version of it on the left competing for airtime. Just stop it.
I wonder how long Boog's going to be here.
I don't know. It was a great.
Yeah.
It was the best possible hire they could make when they made it. We were all
Right.
worried. We were paralyzed with fear. We were about to get 148 games of Chris Myers. But he convinced him that he should still do. He's not doing Sunday night on TV. In addition to, he's doing it on the radio. That to me is 1 foot out the door. But he won't give up the radio job to do Marquee full time. He's like, you guys can find somebody for Sundays, right? Yeah, don't worry about it. It'll be great.
Yeah, I wonder about him, Amin, and Benetti, how long they last here.
That's actually literally one of the things I wrote down is how long do we think Jason Benetti is around before he's purely a national? He's too good, and he's already, he's a lead college basketball announcer. He's a lead college football announcer. He's doing the 7 a.m. Baseball games on Peacock. He's already all over, and how long before he's just not? I like him a lot better, but it reminds me of when Brian Anderson was juggling things and still doing Brewer games for
Right.
Fox Sports Wisconsin. And then all of a sudden he's just gone. He was just no longer the Brewers announcer. Because he's like, I got a lot of better jobs. I'm doing those.
I almost thought he was about to be done because he was so vocal about them not traveling last year. And, he was so fed up with the people at NBC, whether it was the national people or the local people. I wondered if that was like how close he was. Now that they're back to doing it, I think he's probably a little pacified, but I felt like he was, ready to say like, listen, I have other jobs. I don't need to like do this from the NBC studio, the NBC tower, not even like the main office. It was a real bad setup, and he was real fed up. So that's when I really started thinking he might not be long for Chicago.
Well, and so when he leaves, do they just slide Len over? Because I thought the whole thing with Len was
the magic of
radio. I want to be Ernie Harwell, and
Right.
You guys had Mark Lazarus wrote a piece today about how much it sucks for hockey announcers. The biggest games come and they can't do them, and that was supposedly Len's biggest reason for wanting to go to radio was so when the playoffs came around, he could actually work instead of doing.
I think he was very authentic on that, and I think that's true. And he wanted that change, and he wants the chance to do a World Series. I think if that happens, once he's done that, maybe for a few years, then he slides back to TV. I even thought it might be a Benetti Kasper booth, and just get rid of the ex-athlete, and just have those two, because every TV producer now thinks they have the perfect idea, and that's making it just a conversation instead of the traditional play-by-play color person. They think this is going to attract the younger viewers. Jason Benetti and Len Kasper dazzling Gen Z with Benetti's old pop culture references.
And they have done it, right? They've done it.
They have
like a game here or there with Steve.
Well, they have a great. It's nothing about like whatever genius idea people think they have. Those two have a pretty good rapport.
Yeah.
And, they both know how to call a game very professionally. So, I don't know if Stoney's ever going to retire. He's going to be like 100 years old.
It doesn't seem like it.
Wearing like pinky rings and bracelets and golf shirts.
Why doesn't anybody do the old, well, I guess, the Giants do it, where you'll be watching a Giants game and Dwayne Kuiper will disappear and John Miller shows up because they slide over to the radio booth. And that's how Cub fans, we grew up with that. Harry went and did the middle three on radio because of the very thing Harry wanted to do radio. He just wanted to keep a toe in it. And then part of it at the beginning was to pacify Milo Hamilton. They had promised Milo Jack's job. We did Remember This Crap, and I found Jack Brickhouse's last game, and Milo is so excited. You could tell he's like, I'm taking over. I'm finally going to be the lead announcer for the Cubs. And I don't know, like 2 weeks after Jack's last broadcast, the Cubs hired Harry. Milo's like, oh, shit. So they would shift them over. Maybe that's how they could.
That's
Len, you want to do the middle three of a World Series instead? How about that?
Well, remember it was like when Len would be done and then he would slide over the radio for the playoffs and push back like Zaidman or Grody from
he got to do the Pat Hughes' bathroom time inning in the fifth.
I like when I used to see Pat would just be sitting in the kitchen eating ice cream during that inning, just having a little, just such a pleasant man eating his ice cream.
Well, and that's another Brewer thing. If you ever listen to Brewer games back when Pat was working with Bob Uecker would be not announcing, same kind of thing. They had some kind of rotation. But then all of a sudden you'd hear him in the background. He'd think of a story and he was doing the Pat thing. He's literally just sitting in the back of the booth. And all of a sudden he grabbed a microphone and just started telling stories because something occurred to him. And it's like, why is he off for 2 or 3 innings then? If he's just going to sit there and chime in anyway.
Just resting his voice.
That's literally why Pat's doing it, right? The doctor told him that he needed to take a break because he had to have vocal cord surgery and all that was real.
And he can't drink anymore because of it. Because I asked him, I'm like, Pat, do you ever have a White Claw? Because his White Claw ad reads are so good. And he goes, no, I can't drink anymore. He's like, I was never a big drinker, but I would like a beer or two.
Yeah.
And he goes, so I've never been able to try White Claw because it was after the vocal cord surgery.
Because
no zing zang either.
Can you imagine? I mean, I could one White Claw Pat, and he wouldn't be able to stop pounding them. I can't imagine. What a loss for White Claw.
He's so good. I love listening to him in the car. It's just the best thing in the world.
He has the mechanics down to the point where he doesn't have to think about them. He can be in the middle of something and just offhanded, he describes the play and then he's right back to what he wants to be. And then it is jarring then when you get to the 5th inning and then you get Zach, who does not have the mechanics down. Early in the season, horribly surprised by 2 home runs to the point where it's like, oh, that's good. That's a homer? Like, oh, Zach, that's not going on the reel. I don't think it's not very good.
I don't know. I like Zach, so I won't make fun of him. But I say every time I'm in the car.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say every time I'm in the car is the attendance game, and all I can think about is how bad Santa was at it.
Honestly, the few games I listen to on the radio, I think they do the attendance game for 6 innings.
It's an hour's worth of attendance game. They talk about past attendance games, like everyone's streaks. It is like a lot of attendance game content.
Yeah. That's I don't want to spoil it, but I'm going to have Pat and Ron on, and we're going to do Remember This Crap, the attendance game version, and we're just going to remember old attendance games. It's going to be great, be riveting. I want to ask Pat how he comes up with the palindrome guesses, because it's always like 35,853. Ron, did you notice it's the same forward as backwards? That's great, Pat.
Pat explaining how Santa was so bad at it was the best, because he said, everyone else guesses the first one, and then they base their next guesses on what the crowd looks like compared to the first game. But he said Santa could never do that. It would just be these wild guesses.
57,000. Pat, we're at Wrigley. The capacity is 38. I don't know. There's some people in the aisles. Speaking of Marquee, which we were, I was tickled to find out they have a second Twitter account, and that Twitter account follows you. It's Marquee Plus, and it has, as of right now, as of this moment, it has 109 followers. It's where they put their Chicago Sky stuff. Why isn't the Sky stuff just on the regular Twitter feed?
I guess they have it I would guess, because they have to have some of the Sky games on the Plus, on the streaming when it interferes with the Cubs games or I guess 3rd-tier tennis tournaments.
They don't know how Twitter works, though, that you can intersperse them and then more people see them than the other way. Now, let's put Sky over here and we'll start a brand new one. We'll start from scratch. It'll be great. It'll be Sky Fever. We'll have thousands. How many do we have? 109? Is that good? That's not good. No, shit.
Didn't the Sky just play the Fever?
I don't know. It's the WNBA. There's not enough S's at the end of team names. I find it's very confusing.
You know what's I love talking to the Sky players. They're so nice and so funny and smart, and I just feel terrible for them that the league, and they know the league's terrible.
Yeah,
and they know that everything about most teams are I said they're run the teams run college class projects, and it's just and the players know this, and they're so good at their jobs, and it's just kind of like that's why they have to go to Russia to play for oligarchs.
I was going to say they have to they have to risk imprisonment so they can make enough money playing in the Russian league, so then they can play for peanuts in America. I'm glad that Marquee is showing the games because it's nice to have something on that channel that actually wins occasionally, as opposed to
you're right. It's the championship team is the Sky. Like that's the thing when I rip on I made fun of Marquee, and I was I won that Pulitzer for my stories on them wearing the ties.
Yep, congratulations.
Public service Pulitzer. But like I do feel a little. I know I shouldn't, but I do feel a little bad for them. You launch in a pandemic. And then their first full season, they can't travel, and the team stinks. Second season, they are traveling, team's even worse. And what I'm going to write, and when I do the dollars and cents about this too, is they also were weighed down by the fact that like team officials and sort of media people have been calling for this and saying, oh, once they get their TV network, then everything's going to be great. And now fans are like, well, this is bullshit because the team stinks. We're not putting any money in it. And, I don't like the TV network either because the games on it are the actual games on it are so bad. So I feel like they're getting a little bit of the Cubs, mistake. But then again, they're owned by the Cubs. They're part of the Cubs.
But I was shocked, actually, when they launched at how little content they had.
Yeah.
I was like, you guys knew about this, right? I mean, you've been planning for this for years, and now you have nothing to show? Because when they launched, the pandemic hadn't started yet, and you would have thought they would have all this stuff in the can, documentaries and other stuff, and they didn't have hardly anything. That's why they're showing team tennis at from 10 to noon every day.
Right, and that's a Cubs issue because the Cubs could have started this whenever.
Yeah,
they were using all these all these best of stuff that was produced by like MLB Productions.
Oh yeah, believe me.
So it had like no local flavor.
They had greatest moments.
It made no sense.
They had the one that was the greatest moments of Wrigley Field history, and number 3 was Steve Bartman.
Oh yeah,
because it wasn't a Cub-focused thing. It was basically things that happened at Wrigley Field, and they couldn't understand why fans got pissed. Like what? Like, did any of you watch it? Probably not. Well, we got to watch this stuff before we put it on. That seems like that would take some effort.
It is weird that the Cubs didn't have that ready. And again, that's not on Marquee. That's on the Cubs. Because Marquee, those people were hired like not that long before the thing launched.
But then again, there was nothing preventing them from hiring people.
That's what I'm saying. The Cubs could have hired people way well before that. And you pay them to put it together. There's
still a huge gulf between the quality of the stuff Marquee does and the stuff that Cubs Productions do.
Yeah,
the stuff they do on YouTube is so much better than anything you see on Marquee. Actually, one of the first shows they had on Marquee, they were just playing stuff off the YouTube channel.
Yeah,
I was like, this stuff's actually pretty good. But everybody's already seen it 4 times. We don't need to watch it on your network now.
Best of Cubs YouTube.
Yeah, that was like that was their highest rated show for a while. I'm sure 8 people watched it. Yeah,
they should have. They should let Taylor be Unchained and just like really do shows with people's parents, and like actually make that she could like go to their homes. Like maybe that would be more interesting.
They might as well. I mean, it's basically
right.
It's basically just every game becomes parent talk. Let's go interview. All right, it's fine for like a minute, but they're not leaving especially if she can find a seat next to that person. It's 20 minutes.
And no one cares about
Brandon Hughes' mom was on, I think, that game longer than Jim DeShays. She gave more. She was giving analysis while she was doing it.
It's not like you're talking to Rizzo's dad. You're talking to these random guys. Like, I don't care about.
Well, it's not like he went to interview Mike Bryant and he actually grabbed the microphone and he's now going to talk for 90 minutes. And there's nothing you can do short of cut the feed. So all those Cub fans like me who were all just really mad that they couldn't at least pick one of the guys to re-sign, and now they're all terrible.
You're right, they're all terrible.
It's like somebody's Rizzo's got 10 homers. I'm like, just go take a look at Anthony's stats when he's not at Yankee Stadium. Because it's not good at all. And he's got like 4 home runs that would only have been a home run at Yankee Stadium. It's like,
right before he came, I wrote about that. I think it was right before he came or right when he came. I wrote about his slash lines, and it was like slugging like 687 at Yankee Stadium and like 320 on the road.
Oh, that's brutal.
He hasn't homered really much in a while either. And like
Ryan hasn't homered.
Ryan's back's hurt again.
Back on the injured list again. He was back for 2 days, and now he's back on
2 days, and he's like, this back's terrible. And Javi, I mean, I don't think Tiger Stadium's the right place for Javi.
No, but the good thing about it is, you and I know that Javi will take a deep breath and look at the park and go, I should just shorten my swing and go to right field. And it'll be fine. Because, that's right. I have to swing harder, and it'll be fine. Right. He'll be falling down during at bats. It'll be great.
You know what? The thing that kills me about Javi, I mean, everyone's going to have a weakness. No one's perfect, barely, besides like Trout or something. But like, he's not like he's good at so many things. Like you would think that by now he would have figured out his one weakness, like just take a few more pitches that are outside. Like by now he can recognize when that pitch is coming. I mean, I know. Listen, you and I talking about hitting a slider like it's easy. Right. It's not, but like
I'll show him how to
his reflexes are superhuman. Mm-hmm. Like, and he's a really smart baseball player. And like you would have think that by now he would have figured out a little bit, like he did that one season, when he was second in the MVP. And kind of things clicked a little more.
Everything, he's got it now, and then it
went
away.
Yeah, but I'd still rather have him on the team. I mean,
although I made the case for Bryant because he's the best all-around player. But honestly, the guy who just his defensive value alone. It might not be worth of all $24 million a year, whatever he's getting paid, but you're going to get production out of him at a position that, they don't really have. I mean, it would put Horner back at second base. I don't know what we do with the adorable little Nick Madrigal. The only shortstop they've got coming is Christian Hernandez, who's in the Arizona League or whatever. I mean, They don't. It's not like they. Of course, there's the old joke, when they had, Baez and Russell and all that. It's like, oh my God, what are we going to do with all these shortstops? And then by the end of one season, Mike Freeman is playing shortstop in a pennant race. Like, you probably And I also
Addison's tearing up the Mexican League.
He is. Yeah, on the team of disgraced
played for Mickey Callaway.
Managed by Mickey Callaway. I forgot what I was going to say. It was very astute. It'll come.
Was it some Vargas comment? What is it? Ildarmo Vargas?
I was going to talk. It's all Ildemargo Vargas chat now. I want to talk about that.
How funny was it though when Sutcliffe was getting so frustrated watching?
That was great because Rick, childhood hero of mine. I feel like the perfect role for him with Marquee is bring him to a home game, slide him in for the middle 3 innings of a game, and let him tell a few stories, and then go away. But no, they had him doing. He did 5 games in 6 days, and it's like, no. But the part of it that redeemed it was he started to get mad at Vargas, and then the ball kept finding Ildemaro, and he kept doing bad things, and Rick was getting madder and madder and madder.
That was good though, because everyone likes Rick, and he's great. And I just hate when he becomes this homer that's just like. Well, remember last year when he was on, and he was just like talking about, "Hey, remember when we won the World Series? What a great organization this is!" And everyone's like, "Dude, everyone's pissed off right now. Like, read the room."
Well, it was only a couple of games after he got mad at Ildemaro that he's trying to make the case. The Cubs are going to be buyers at the deadline.
I remember you.
And Pat was doing the games with him because they had the weird Friday night on Apple TV, and then Sunday Boog would be gone anyway, so Boog just didn't go to Arizona. So Pat did all 3 games, and Pat literally was like, "This trade deadline, like Rick, I wonder what the hand signals were. Like, no, what are you doing? Are you about to tell the George Clooney story again? We don't want to hear it."
There was one point there in that stretch when I was listening, and he was like, Hayward had a single, and he was like, I think his bat's really heating up.
He's 1 for 22 now, but it's a hard 1 for 22. Just missing.
I was like, he's really heating up. And then I started looking through his numbers, and it was just like really bad. Really, it's just really terrible.
Yeah, it's bad, and it's to the point where it's.
I mean, they're going to DFA him at some point. Doesn't make sense to do it now because they have no one to play behind. I mean, there's no one to play. Like when he's out there, it's just literally because they need a body that knows.
Aren't they just going to have Christopher Morel play every position?
Right.
Maybe multiple at once. You think you can play left and center? What, tonight? Yeah, at the same time. No, I don't think I can. Yeah, I mean, he's not blocking anybody. I mean, it was funny, though, the people who were, we got to see what Michael Hermosillo could do. We can't risk DFAing him. And he's slugging 0.89. It's like, I think he could risk it. I really do. I think he'd probably make it to Iowa. It's like guys on Twitter will be like, they'll be showing who's doing rehab assignments, and they're like, reinforcements are on the way. And it's like, the reinforcements are Alec Mills and David Bodie. Those are not reinforcements. Oh.
Will they lose more games than they did in 2012? I think they can lose 102.
I don't know. What we found out the last couple of nights is the Reds are super bad. So,
yeah.
I mean, they might go like 17-2 against the Reds, and I think it's hard to lose 102 when you win 17 against one team.
How they've lost any games to the Pirates is a mystery. Like I've been to two of those Pirates Cubs games in person. It was the 21-0 game and the 7-0 game.
Yeah, it's at one point they had outscored them like 55-21, and they had both won 4 games.
Yeah. It was. I was there sitting in those good seats my cousin has to watch Daniel Vogelbach triple, and then to watch him get thrown out by 6 feet. He is huge. Vogelbach is.
Yeah, he's even bigger than him.
He's gotten so much. He's gotten a lot bigger than he used to be.
I mean, you would think that just leaving Milwaukee, you'd lose a little weight. You know, your access to sausage is cut down considerably. Oh, that's true. I mean, he's like Pittsburgh. It's like, is it? What do they do? What's the big delicacy? You're from that area. What's the big delicacy?
From Manny Brothers.
Is it they put the French fries on the sandwich?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never had it sober.
That's got to be. Dan was in heaven when he found out about that.
Yeah, I've never had that one sober, so. But I would assume.
He's like, okay, there's
not
fries.
All skinny Pittsburghers.
There's fries on the sandwich. Do I also get fries though? I mean, do I get? They're only on the sandwich. We can get you some more, Dan. That'll be fine. Jim
Leland's like the only skinny Pittsburgher.
Well, that's because he was smoking.
Just because he smokes all the time.
8 packs of cigarettes a game. It's hard to gain a lot.
You know, one time I was in his, I was doing like pregame when he was at the Tigers, the White Sox, and I'd been out drinking the night before, and I didn't feel that great. And Jim's just chain smoking in his office, and I'm like starting to feel sick because it's just like, you know, like you're back at a bar again. Then after he smokes a few cigarettes, then he eats atomic fireballs to keep the sensation.
It's good for my heartburn. What?
I was like, how are you sucking on a fireball after smoking 3 heaters?
All right, so I want to ask you if you know how are our friends at Chuggo doing?
I don't think anyone's gotten beaten up in a while.
That's good.
That's
a
plus. I don't know. I can't imagine the seventh circle of hell having to podcast about Chicago sports teams every day.
Why did you do that? That's what I was going to ask you. I don't know why you need to do 5 podcasts a week on every one of the sports.
And they're all terrible. Every team stinks.
Yeah, it's not like you're like, oh, you know, we gotta recap all this excitement. It's like, and then, I mean, trying to do bear content, you know, in the off season, 5 days a week. I mean, I even saw on, you know, I was scrolling by on Twitter and to see it, and they were talking about Jalen Johnson practicing with the twos. What does that mean? It means it's May. I think that's what it means. Like, if nobody's going to give a shit in August that he practiced with the second team for a day.
I don't know how these guys do it. I mean, some of these guys are more I'm just not as passionate about it, I guess, as I used to be. But I could not talk about these teams every day. Maybe if they're Cubs, or maybe like the 2016 Cubs, you could, or even the Derrick Rose Bulls, like when a lot was going on. But this is just, the Bulls were terrible once they launched, and like everyone stinks. I'm used to it. I'm used to every team being bad in town. But like, I guess we had the Blackhawks for a while. but just, I'm used to the mediocrity. It's not, been doing this for almost 20 years.
Just from a content consumption standpoint, though, I mean, who's listening to these 5 days a week?
I have some questions about that as well.
It's got to just be like, an example is there was this really good, I was looking for like a TV recap podcast, not KAP, not Dave Kaplan, but because there's a lot of good TV on, and I found one. And so I subscribed to it, but they only had one feed, and so you got everything. And so I would spend the morning deleting a bunch of episodes off my phone before I could get to the few that I wanted, and I just deleted it. I'm like, I can't curate my own podcast feed every morning, and then all during the day they'd be putting more up. It's like, I can't do it. And I kind of feel like if you subscribe to one of the Chuggo podcasts, after a while you're like, there's 8 of them on my phone that I haven't listened to. I feel like I'm, drowning.
I wonder, because they put a lot of money into like their White Sox, and like I just wonder if they're like, man, are they getting hate listens? Because it's just like a miserable team. And then they put a lot of money in their Blackhawks, which we all found is kind of weird. Yeah. And we have 2 Blackhawks writers, but even they're like, man, imagine talking about the Blackhawks every day.
I can't I can't watch the Cubs every day, much less talk about them every day. That would be an issue if I was on the Cub podcast. We want to talk about today. Oh, I didn't watch today. I can't watch that crap every day. Are you kidding me? Want me to tell a 20-minute story about Frank Schwindel getting a flat tire and not being able to go to Iowa, and now he's hit 4 home runs in a week? Because that's really exciting.
I should have probably dug into that a little more. Like, what happened there? Like, why did they send him? Did they just get frustrated and just decide to send him? I think Ross got frustrated with him and just wanted to get him out of here.
I think so.
Because he gave that whole interview where he's like, he's got a lot to work on. You just don't get a spot up here.
Yep.
You don't get a gifted man. And then like a day later, he's back.
he never went, right? Like he was going to go to the airport or drive. I'm sure he's going to drive to Des Moines. You don't fly to Des Moines. You got, and he was going to head out that night, and he had a flat tire, so he had to wait till the morning to get it fixed. And by the time he was getting the tire fixed, they needed him to get on a commercial flight to San Diego where he got a middle seat.
That middle seat thing is too funny. I mean, my God, that's like, how could you give the guy a middle seat?
First class,
to San Diego?
First class Cubs. He got peanuts. I mean, come on. He didn't have to go to Iowa.
Did he?
Maybe.
Oh, God.
You should ask him.
I've never talked to Schwindel, shockingly. I tried talking to Madrigal twice this year, and he's like blew me off both times. Big league me both times. Can you imagine that? Getting big league by Nick Madrigal?
Somebody should show Nick a chart of his career batting average and on-base average, and just watch as it's like, it never seems to go up, Nick. It started high, and it's just kind of trending down and to the right. I did a whole thing. I don't want to relitigate the whole thing, but I had a whole theory that because there were people like Madrigal can't be bad. He can't be bad. The White Sox drafted 4th overall, and the Cubs traded a really good asset to get him. So clearly both teams know there's something there. I said, well, both teams could be wrong. And it really felt like both teams were trying to solve a problem. We got too much. Both teams. We got too much swing and miss. We just need one guy who's going to hit line drives and base hits, and we'll get the 4'2" guy who can't run, and really can't field the position. But that'll be fine because it'll all work out. And after a while, the White Sox were like, oh, and then he tears his hamstring, and they're like, well, we just give him away. And now the Cubs have him, and they're like, oh. And I compared it to Cap's long tortured story about wandering into the hotel bar after the 2008 Cubs got swept by the Dodgers. And they're all sitting around. It's like Lou and Matt Sinatro and Jim Hendry. They're all in the bar. And Lou is bitching about how the only left-handed hitter you gave me is Fukadomi, and he can't hit, and blah, blah, blah. And out of that came the trade away Mark DeRosa and sign Milton Bradley. That was going to fix everything. It's like just because you identify what you think the weakness is doesn't mean your solution actually works.
There was people that told me about the Cubs getting Madrigal that they thought that was like not Jed's first choice, and that was basically
I can't see how it could have been.
Right.
I almost wonder if Jed's brother Cody Hoyer was the real prize in the trade, because it was until he got caught Tommy John disease.
Absolutely. Right. I'm sure he asked for Vaughn. Like everyone asks for Vaughn. That's what Hans told me. Like every conversation they have, he said people ask for Vaughn. He said people still ask for like Eloy or like Luis Robert occasionally. But yeah, Vaughn's the guy you ask for because he's the guy you figure is expendable. And they just don't want to get rid of him. I mean, yeah, Madrigal is just maybe it's just he comes back and he gets his little bat up and he starts hitting again. But like,
well, my issue with him though was they had the exact same skill set, except in a better athlete, in Nico Horner.
Right.
You have an adult-sized version of Madrigal, and he does all of the things Madrigal does well. Nico does well, except Nico actually does other things well. Like he's fast. He has an actual major league arm. He was a Gold Glove finalist at second base, and they were just playing him at shortstop. Yeah, and they were just playing him at shortstop out of necessity this year, with the idea eventually he was going to go back to second. Yeah. And then you go trade for a small version of him. And maybe they're just like, well, maybe one of them will work out. We got two. Maybe one of them will work out.
What a lose-lose trade that was.
How much of it was that the Jed doing Kimbrel is solid because his daughter was getting medical treatment. They didn't have to leave Chicago.
Right. Yeah, I do wonder that too.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked good at the time for the Sox. Like, on paper, it was a good idea, Just completely didn't work out. Sox are tough, man. I don't know what the hell's going to happen over there. You just kind of think of how, like, they did a better job. I mean, you can argue they did a better job with the rebuild than the Cubs did because they signed all their guys immediately. Yeah, so they gave them a lot more cost certainty. It just shows how difficult it is. I don't know. That's going to be an interesting story to see how that season shakes out. Not that you care, but like
I don't.
The rest of us,
I actually don't. They can't miss the playoffs. The American League, especially the Central, is set up. They can't miss it, but that doesn't mean they're going to do anything in it. I mean, right. if they're 3 or 4 and out after the season that was built up to be World Series or bust, heads got to roll. I can't imagine that the 87-year-old manager gets to run it back one more time. But it's also there's no chance he gets whacked in season. That's not going to happen.
No.
He
doesn't even talk. I don't even think he talks to Miguel Cairo. Like,
does he know who he is? Who's this guy? What's this guy that's always around me in the dugout? It's your bench coach. My what?
I mean, everyone's dream is Ozzie to take over. That's not going to happen because they don't. Just the front office. I mean, it's just there's too much division there between the front office and him. But we can send this over to Jim Margulis's podcast later.
Yeah. It's such a Chicago thing, isn't it? To just go back to the guy who won and was entertaining. That's just the solution. It was just like the Bears every year. A bunch of people like, just bring Ditka back. What this team needs? They need the fire and the passion. Bring Ditka back. It's like, no.
Yeah, Ozzie has turned into Ditka. Just always still around. Yeah. And just there. And I thought it was really funny, though, when Renteria was around and Ozzie was doing the postgame. And Ozzie, clearly didn't respect Renteria in any way. And it was just, the most uncomfortable situation. He likes Tony. He'll criticize him, but he obviously likes Tony a lot. But that was a great situation to put the manager who wants the job on the post-game show to criticize the manager who's not that good.
Yeah. But on the other side of town, at least the Cubs have already given David Ross a contract extension because that was good. They really needed to do that because I
love Ross, man.
He had 2 years left on his deal, and they needed to lock him up because he could go nowhere.
I don't dislike Ross, but they love Ross, man. They they claim they had Theo claimed to me they really tried to overcome their biases when they were hiring him and have other people independently grade him, all the interviews, but come on. They wanted to hire David Ross, they hired David Ross. We all know it. It's the worst kept secret in sports. Madden knew it when that last season that David Ross was taking his job.
Yeah, they were literally shoving their Hall of Fame manager out the door. They couldn't replace him fast enough. It's what is the hurry? Why are we doing this? Yeah. Well, maybe Joe will have the last laugh. He finally has a good team in Anaheim. He finally has an actual. He probably thought he had a bullpen last year because they gave him Steve Cishek.
I'm rooting hard for the Angels. I mean, listen, the White Sox winning the which isn't going to happen, but the White Sox winning would be better for me professionally, and I'd like to see it happen for my friends in town, the city. But like, I'm assuming that's not going to happen, and I'm rooting for the Angels because not only do I like Joe, they actually have I would love to see like everyone else, these great players in the World Series.
Yeah,
like Shohei, Trout.
I mean, what will it be like to have Shohei in the playoffs? Like, how will they use him? I mean, there's, he could they could decide never to start him, and he pitches the last 3 innings of every playoff game instead.
Yeah, Joe. Can you imagine Joe plus Shohei in the playoffs? That sounds, much as we all love Joe, that seems like a recipe for success.
Yeah. I did think it was funny when everybody got, Joe walked Corey Seager, who Theo famously told too tall to play shortstop, walked Corey Seager with the bases loaded in the 4th inning of a game. And everybody went nuts. Oh, there's Joe. He's crazy, overmanaging, blah, 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 blah. And they won. And they won like the next 6 in a row and went into first place. It's like, yeah, sometimes he has to be Joe. Just, he can't help himself. But he knows how to run a baseball team. And just let him do it.
Listen, he saw someone do that in the California League 1975.
Yeah, he had a 35-minute story about it after the game as to why he did it.
Right. It's like some guy named Peanuts Johnson, who was a manager in like Tacoma, did it before.
Joe's a good example of how they're, everything we thought we were going to get with Marquee, was, well, they're going to do it. The reason they have to get away from there is they need more income and blah, blah, blah. It's clear that they don't strategically think about Marquee and the Cubs, given that who would have been the most perfect manager to have when you launch your own TV network? Then Joe would fill up the hour pre and post game by himself. And they were like, "Oh, hey, we got a new network. All right, no, Joe's gone. We don't really need him anymore."
Yeah. I don't know when we're going to see a good Cubs team again. When do you think?
Oh, with the prospect perverts to tell you that it's just 2 years away. I mean, look at Myrtle Beach has the best record in the minor leagues and the best offense, and blah, 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 and it's great. I would much rather have good minor league teams than bad, but we also know that if you have 10 good prospects, you might get one really good player and one good one out of it.
Here's the thing that does make me a little optimistic. Not about them winning again, because who knows that's going to happen. But, the Theo and Jed and McLeod regime, they had like 3 good prospects. Maybe 2. Is it just Chris and Kyle? I mean, I guess are we counting like, Hendricks and
they inherited Javi, they traded for Kyle.
Right. So like the thing that Jim Hendry's, regime did well was like these like mid-level guys, terrible in the first round, right? But they would have all these random guys that would make the majors, and even like Josh Donaldson, everyone's favorite guy. Those type of players they developed and they scouted. Like Hendry's guys had a way of finding those guys that Theo's regime found like none, like 0 until maybe some now, but like it's amazing how bad they were in those middle rounds.
Yeah, they had to have a top 8 pick and take a proven college player to get anything out of it. That's how they got Bryant, Schwarber, and Happ. And they really didn't get anything else, and they couldn't develop a single pitcher.
It is amazing how bad they were.
Yeah,
it developed.
Like, you would think you accidentally would pick somebody who would wander through your staff or wander through your system onto the staff, and they couldn't. And it derailed everything. It ruined their plan.
Yeah. That's like whenever I criticize Ricketts, I always have to leave a little, as much as no one wants to compliment. It's not a compliment to him. It's just that the front office also screwed the pooch on a big part of it, on a big part of their plan was to develop young talent to fill the gaps.
Yeah. I mean, I think the one thing Tommy deserves credit for is somewhere they were having a meeting and said, what we need? We need a Theo Epstein. And he went, why don't we get the Theo Epstein? And they did. So
it is kind of amazing. I know not Theo. Some people refer to it as Crane's Hail Mary, and like Crane, I think basically probably kept his job because he like spearheaded. He like at least led the charge for it. Yeah. But if they don't get, that's right. I was the one writing like they need a Theo Epstein. They actually got the real one. It's kind of still pretty credible. But now he's gone. Now they've got the Jed Hoyer.
Yeah, Theo Light.
They don't even have Jeff Greenberg anymore.
No, that's too bad. Well, you'll be getting texts now from you'll be getting accidental Blackhawks texts instead of accidental Cub texts. So
yeah, I'm hoping that's the case. Be like, hey, we're sending this guy to Rockford. I'll be like, don't care. Just delete my number.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you, John. It was great to have you on. Let's not wait as long next time to do it again.
Yeah, anytime. Anytime Marquee screws up.
Oh, well, he'll be back on tomorrow then, I'm sure.
Yeah, see you tomorrow.
All right, thanks a lot.
All right, see you.
Many of us have herpes.